What's up, everybody? Welcome to Save Crystal Gaming and welcome to another tier maker video. Today I am ranking all of these video game systems. And you got to remember, anytime we do a tier maker video, this is all my opinion. Maybe one of these consoles is more nostalgic to me, so I would place it higher on my list than you would. So just keep that in mind. This is my list. If you'd like to make a list, go over to tier maker and you can do it. Now, out of all the lists that they had for video game consoles, I think this was the best one that I could find. Some of the other ones were like missing certain important, consoles that I thought should have been in there. So this is the one I went with. So let's not waste any more time and let's start off with the original Xbox. Now, I think the original Xbox was a fantastic console for the or for Microsoft to get into the video game world with. I would put it in the B category. It went up against the PlayStation 2. We'll get into that in a moment. I tend to like the PS2 just, more. We'll get to that, like I said, in a moment. But man, what a great way to start for Xbox. I love the look of this thing. It's exactly what it is. It says it is. It's a box with a giant X on the top of it with like a green jewel thing on the top. Love it. Good console. Xbox 360. This is an elite console for me. I have so many memories with the Xbox 360. I love the controller. Man, like I automatically, when I see the console, I automatically think of BioShock, and because that's the game that got me to buy an Xbox 360. But yes, I love the 360, and it is definitely in the A category for me as an all-time best. And I don't think, once again, my opinion, I don't think Microsoft has been able to top the 360. I just don't. I don't. Alright, moving on. We have the Xbox One. Another good console. I would put this in C. It just didn't stand out. It just wasn't special. I did have an Xbox One before I had a PS4. And I enjoyed it. C isn't bad. It just isn't great, and it's not bad. It's in the middle. But I don't know. I think, I used to play Friday the 13th. When I would stream here on the channel, I would play Friday the 13th on my Xbox One. And as much as I had played that console, that dashboard still confuses the heck out of me. I mean, you would think, you do get used to certain things, but there were settings and all kinds of stuff that still I'm lost with. But C is pretty good for that. Now, I don't know what this is. I think this is where maybe this was like an Xbox One S or something like that. They started getting confusing with the names after a bit. They still are, but we'll leave that in C as well. Alright, the Xbox Series S. I have one of these. I'm not a huge fan of digital consoles. Since it's digital only, man, I'll tell you, I like how small it is. It saves room. We're going to leave it at C also. I like physical stuff. I'm a physical media person. I mean, I understand if it's a game that you can only get digitally, or if it's like a sports title, because those games aren't worth nothing. Now, like if I'm a Titans fan, if they come out with a Madden with a Titans player on the front, then yeah, I'm going to physically buy that. But anything else, outside of, sports games or, digital only, I like to physically own it. So I'm not a fan of digital only consoles. The Xbox Series X. Once again, I like the look of it. I like the glowing green at the top. I do not own one of these, but I know a couple people that have them, and I've seen them. They're basically the same. They really are. One's just digital, one isn't. So I think I'm going to put this in the B category. I think it's a decent console. Same with the original Xbox. All right, into PlayStation now. The PS1 for me is A. It is a all-time favorite. One of the very first game systems I ever loved, and man, all the different classics on this thing. The startup sound is so nostalgic. Heck, in my mind, I can hear the buttons that you press on the actual system itself. The spring for the open that opens the disc tray thing. I love the PlayStation 1. It's one of my all-time favorites, so we're going to keep that there. Alright, the PlayStation 1, spelling it out, O-N-E, this was a miniature version of the PS1. It's the same thing. I mean, you could hook this thing into your television, or you could actually get this screen here you can see on top. I like that. I mean, it's still the PlayStation 1, so I feel like it has to go up there in the A area. And first time I ever got one of these, I thought I had been missing out for years. You know, to be able to take this on the go, and not really on the go. I mean, like, yeah, sure, if you have a way to hook it up in your car, because you still have to have power to it. It doesn't run by battery or anything like that. But to be able to go on like a trip, have this, you know, in the hotel room, wherever. It was a really good idea. It was a really good idea. The PlayStation 2, it's elite, man. One of the greatest video game consoles of all time. It's up here with the 360 for me and the PS1. A great video game system. You have to really think too, like, the hype. If you go back and you can find old videos of people like waiting for this thing to release, the hype was unbelievable. And I know there's always hype, you know, behind a new system or a new console that's coming out or whatever, but I don't think I've ever seen anything like this before when it came to a video game console. So the PS2 is up there in the elite category for me. The PlayStation 3. I was very late to the PlayStation 3 because I was loving my Xbox 360. I think the PlayStation 3 is a very good console. I'm going to put it here in B. This model that we're looking at right here, I think earlier models were backwards compatible. Not only could you play new PS3 games on it, obviously, but you could play PlayStation 1 disc and PlayStation 2 discs. I wish more game consoles were like that today. I was very late to it though, like I said, and when I finally got it, it had some cool games. Heavy Rain was the first one I ever played for it, but just like the original Xbox, I think it's good. I think it's good, but it just lacks the elite. I think they put out a different version, looked just like this one, but it was not backwards compatible. And then they put out a slim version, which was not backwards compatible. If the PlayStation 3 was backwards compatible across the board on all the different ones they put out, that's elite. That is elite. PlayStation 4. I think the PlayStation 4 was a pretty solid console, but nothing special. I'm going to put it in C. PlayStation 5. I was lucky enough to get a pre-order on this and pick it up on release day. Very excited. This is where I'm kind of contradicting myself because, yes, the Xbox One S is very small and compact, and I said that I liked that. This thing is not. This thing is a monster, and I think I love the look of it. It looks like it's from space, like it's some kind of ship or something. I don't know how really to explain the way that it looks other than that. I love the light that goes around it. This is my main console right now. This is what I play the most on, and I think it's a good console, so I'm going to put it at B. I do like it slightly better than the PS4, but yes, I enjoy it. Alright, the NES. it is elite for me. It just, I mean, this is the very first game system I ever had. I really, when I think of this, I think of Super Mario 3, I think of The Legend of Zelda. Oh man, I think of all kinds of stuff. The Zapper Gun games, you know, Duck Hunt and Hogan's Alley. And man, there's just so... We're going to talk about this in a moment. There was something for everybody on the NES. This is back when TV shows made games, movies made games. There was something literally for everyone on the NES. Not all of it was good, but there are some great games on here and legendary franchises that got its start here. So yeah, NES all the way at the top for me. The Super Nintendo is a console that I got much later. I think it's decent. I don't love it. If anything, the only thing I love on it is the color scheme. I love that purple and the grays, but for me, I don't love it. I do love some games that are on it, like A Link to the Past. Oh man, so good. I'm obviously, if you haven't picked that up yet, I'm a Zelda guy, but yes, this is a good console, but it's not special for me. And maybe that has something to do with me not growing up with it. I didn't. We'll get to it. We're coming up. The Nintendo 64. At one point in time, I was collecting every Nintendo 64 game. And I come within 10. And some of those games got ridiculously priced. And I just realized, you know what? I am not paying some of these prices for this. And I ended up selling them all. And went with emulation. But no, I have played majority of Nintendo 64 games. The library is small. However, a lot of it is racing games. And the controller, sure, as iconic as it looks, it is very, like... It's difficult. It's difficult. I mean, when you look at it, for somebody that has never played a Nintendo 64 controller, they're going to hold it the way you think you should, but you shouldn't. You have to hold it at that middle base. I think a lot of people look at the 64 with nostalgic glasses on. I don't think that, you know, it was as good as the PlayStation 1. Does it have some great games? Yeah, it sure does. I mean, Super Mario 64, you had Mario Kart, you had Super Smash, you had Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, the wrestling games. It has its place, and I think it's a C console for me. I mean, that might sting. That might sting some butts, man. But it is what it is. I think it's solid, but it's not good. And we better move on. I can feel that energy right now. The GameCube. That's A for me, man. I think the GameCube, not so much anymore, but it got slept on because not only was the PlayStation 2 one of the greatest consoles of all time, and obviously it was competing against it, but you got Microsoft and the Xbox coming in as well, and it just it got slept on, and now people are kind of starting to understand how great the GameCube really was. I would have loved to see a GameCube too. I love the look of it. The purple, the indigo color is obviously my favorite one. I say obviously, like you guys should know that, but no. I like the spice orange one that was exclusive to Japan, but I love how compact it was. It had the little handle if you wanted to take it to a friend's house, and when the GameCube come out, that I was in that age group, you know, of in school and having sleepovers, and that's kind of what it was. Convenient. It was convenient. The controller, I still love the GameCube controller. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's up there with the 360 for me. It's elite. The Wii. I think the Wii I almost put the Wii up at A, and let me explain. Just like the NES, the Wii had something for everyone. Another console with a ton of games, TV shows, and sure, you know, yeah, there were, like, you know, Call of Duty games on there, there were wrestling games and sports games, and they might not have looked as good as, you know, the 360 version or the PS3 version, by not even close, but it was still fun, and this was different. I mean, this was a way to get people up and active and still having fun. Anytime you gotta sweat, for me, I don't think sweating is fun. I don't like to sweat, but this was a way to stay active. I mean, I had family members that worked in nursing homes, and they had these for the older people, you know, during the activities time, and they had these in schools, and it just, the Wii still today holds up. My all-time favorite game for it is Wii Bowling. Me and my wife still, out of nowhere, we keep a Wii hooked up. That way, if we're like, hey, a couple rounds of bowling, and we'll play it. So I do love the Wii. Almost put it in the A category. And listen, honestly, it's not down. It's more like in the middle, right here. It's teetering. Any day I could switch this, but today we're gonna leave it at B. All right, the Wii U. D. I got a Wii U. You know what? I can't remember what it was for. I don't know if it was graduation or a birthday, where people had just given me money for, and I remember collecting all the money out of my cards and realized I was going to get a Wii U. Not that I wanted, like I needed one, or I was dying to get one, but I was just like, you know what? I got enough to get a Wii U. I'm going to get one. So I did. And I love NES Remix on it. I thought the Wii U, just like the Wii Shop, the store had some really good throwback games, but there was nothing special about the Wii U. And you can see like where the Switch, the idea for the Switch was coming from. This is like you know, obviously it's pre-Switch, but you can see what they were trying to do. And it would have been really cool if you could use the Wii U as a console and a handheld, which you could, but you had to be within range of the console. So like you just couldn't pick it up and take it, like the console had to be plugged in. I worked with a guy that we worked at in a fuel center, one of my first jobs, and he would bring his Wii U, plug it in the back, and he would usually do the closing shift, so there wasn't a lot, you know, it was not busy at all, and he would plug in his Wii U in the back of the fuel center, and then sit up front with the gamepad. The Switch was needed. The Switch was needed. The Wii U was a flop. You could see, just like the Wii, they did something special. They were trying to do something here, but it just didn't work. So, that brings us the Switch. They perfected it. They perfected it. Not only can you have this thing as a handheld gamepad, like the Wii U had, you could dock it and play it on your television. And I have never been someone that loved handhelds, because when it came to a Game Boy, I always wanted to play the games that look like they do on my TV. I wanted them to be on the screen like that. This did that. This did that. So, the Switch goes up to the A category. I think they perfected the Switch. Honestly, I hear that like the Switch is towards the end of its life, and I don't know what Nintendo's going to put out next. How do you top that? do you just put out a Switch 2 and upgrade some stuff? I mean, I know they have the OLED model, but I think the Switch is where it's at right now. And even though it's been out for like seven years now, I think it still is pretty great. I do. I think it's pretty great. Okay. Sega Genesis. I had a Sega Genesis instead of the Super Nintendo as a kid. I would put this in the B category. And once again, maybe if I had a Super Nintendo over a Genesis, I would have flipped them. But I grew up with a Genesis. I think, just like the Super Nintendo, the Genesis has some great titles. But like, if you're trying to compare them, because they were definitely head-to-head at the time. But if you're trying to compare the two, I think the Super Nintendo has the better controller. I think the Sega Genesis has the better sound and graphics to a game. But, you know, to each their own. To each their own. But the Genesis goes to the B category for me. The Sega Saturn. The Sega Saturn did not have much time. Because Sega was ready to put out the Dreamcast. I think, oh man. I'm gonna put the Saturn. The thing that was cool about the Saturn is this is where Sega decided, you know, I mean, they messed around with Sega CD and all that, but they were going forward with CD games, and this not only, we're gonna put it in C. Not only could you play the disc games of Saturn, you could also use Sega Genesis in the back of it. There was a little port for you to pop your old games into and play. It's a decent console, one I didn't get till much later, but nothing like over the top. Nothing over the top special for me. So let's move on to the Dreamcast. This is a console that nobody gave a lot of attention to when it first came out. The PlayStation was just running wild, but people look back on this thing very fondly. Sure, was the controller odd? Yeah. Was the who thought it was a good idea to put the cord on the bottom of the controller? Not a good, you know. But the Sega Dreamcast is a B console for me. Once again, this was not a console that I had right away. Much later, till I got older and out of school and everything, did I get a Dreamcast. And when I did, as a lot of other people who played it much later thought, man, this thing is actually pretty awesome. The Atari 2600. Boy, you gotta have an imagination with this thing. You really do. You gotta have a really good imagination. Let's put the Atari 2600. It's not bad. I mean, there's some games that are bad. Ooh. I'm gonna go C. I'm gonna go C. The Atari Jaguar. Now this is, this was supposed to be 64-bit graphics. I do not believe this thing was 64-bit graphics. I hated the controller. The controller alone would have me put this thing in the F category. And that's exactly where it's going. That's what I feel. I was thinking about maybe putting it there with the Wii U, but that is even a disgrace to the Wii U. I mean, the Jaguar, it kind of looks like a spaceship too. Like, you know, with the PS5, like I said, it kind of looks, but nowhere near as cool looking as the PS5. And it doesn't even function like the PS5. This thing, 64 graphics, no way. There's no way. 64 graphics for the Atari Jaguar, apparently. it didn't even look as good as the PlayStation. And the PlayStation wasn't running 64 graphics. So, I don't know what this thing really ran. I don't care either. I had one of these at one point in time. I sold it. I don't ever care to own one ever again. It just, you know, I'm sure it has a few good games, but nah, not for me. Alright, the PSP. Taking the PlayStation 2 on the go. This is when handheld started to look really good. And started to get very close to what you were seeing on your television when you played the PS2. So I would put the PSP, once again, not a big handheld guy, but I will put the PSP in the B category. Once again, just because I'm not a big handheld guy. Alright? The original brick Game Boy. This thing looks so ancient nowadays. No backlight. This thing was... You had to be pretty desperate in the car rides, you know. I just think they did it better. I'm gonna put this in the D category because it, you know, Game Boy Color right here. Much better. We'll put the Game Boy Color in the C category. Game Boy Advance in the B category. You know, they kept getting better. Sega Game Gear was definitely better than the original Game Boy. I'll put it in C. We're flying through these. And the Nintendo 3DS. Let's go with the original, the DS first. Put it in C. 3DS. This is an XL, but the 3DS in general. In the B. And then we're going to end things on the Virtual Boy. F. I don't know what they were thinking with this thing. The games were all in red and black. There was no real good way to have this thing on your head. Didn't offer a lot. Didn't have very many games. It was a failure. Alright, down below here I see a couple that I might have missed. But I kind of just mainly wanted to get the main consoles. But like the Game Boy SP. Definitely better than the... we'll put it up there with B, okay? Put it up there with B. It was basically a more compact version of the Game Boy Advance, but yeah, and a lot of these down here are just repeats. I don't know why they were put in like that, but this is my list. Feel free to make your own list. I can't wait to see what some of you say in the comments. Remember to be nice, though, alright? This is my list, alright? Maybe... I know that Super Nintendo one probably ain't gonna sit well, and that Nintendo 64 one probably ain't gonna sit well, but I get it, man. If that's in the A category for you, that's incredible, and I'm happy for you putting it there. But those two consoles for me, they're good, but they're not elite. So, all right, guys. That's going to do it for me. Once again, my Elite here up top, you see the Xbox 360, you see the PlayStation 1. These go together, basically. PlayStation 2, the NES, the GameCube, and the Switch. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in whatever it is I do next, because you never know.